Alrighty, good morning. Good morning. Today is December the 20th. We're here for the morning 10 o'clock session. And I just wanted to remind everyone today that there was news just a moment ago. That's why you see a bit of impulsive action with the candles. So this morning we had consumer confidence and existing home sales come out at 10 o'clock. And it looks like both are better than forecasted. So we're going to look and see how that impacts the US dollar. My expectation is that the dollar should see a higher value because of these news sessions, at least for the morning. And that could potentially push commodity prices downwards. So we're going to let price settle for a bit after this news was delivered just 5 minutes ago. And then once we believe the price has settled or at least chosen a direction and is not doing a back and forth thing, that we can then look for a position. But first things first, let's just take a peek at where we are on a higher time frame. So I'm going to start at the daily. Right, and we can see, just how strong the last 2 weeks have been. It's pretty much been bullish candles every day. This is the day after NFP last week where we had this doji candle, but everything else has pretty much been a bullish candle. We can even see today the high from yesterday has already been taken. Oops, sorry, can't draw anymore. But we can see the high of yesterday was at 17,031 and a half. And we're already up now to 17,046. So the objective today of looking at it making a new high has already occurred. Now, that doesn't mean that it won't continue going up today and we won't see an even greater high. But for just the basic, we expect a new high every day. That already happened this morning. All right, let's switch down to the hourly. We can see there was a dip at the London Open. Or just after the London Open, there was not much activity the first hour. Then we saw a sharp decline in price, settlement, and then the New York Open 8 and 9 o'clock hours have really filled in this gap here. And now since the news was announced, the last bit, and we're now potentially going for a new high today because the original high was made, looks like 10 o'clock last night. So during the Asian session. All right, down to the 5 minute. Well, we have the 5 minute in the bottom left. So let me just shift back down to the 30-second. We're still looking for scalps. The 1-to-1 scalps on a 5-point stop loss, 5-point take profit. But actually, you know what? While we have some time, let's bounce over and take a look at S&P. I know a lot of traders are into the S&P, so let's just look and see if we see the same characteristics from Nasdaq that we see in the same from the S&P that we saw in Nasdaq. So we do have a new daily high. So the high was already taken. We saw for Nasdaq it was around 10 o'clock last night, and let's see, it looks like midnight for S&P. But we did see a decline throughout the London session, just like in Nasdaq, and in the last 2 hours has really picked back up and covered in the gap and is now potentially looking for a new high. Okay, let's cross over and take a peek at the dollar. Yeah, I said that the news could potentially push the dollar higher. We see the last few days, the dollar's been trading internal range liquidity. And what I mean by that is if you look at this candle from last Thursday, the high of this candle is at 102.808 and the low is down at 101.787, right? The next 3 days traded within that range. It didn't trade above or below. And now we have the same thing going on for this day. And it looks like price is, coiling in on itself. So each day is just making a smaller range. Eventually that range is going to break and price is going to have to go one of the different directions. We already saw before this internal range, it broke the low from the end of November. So we had a big move downwards. And so it would not surprise me today if we get buy or some bullish momentum up into this gap here for the dollar. And then from there, potentially continue to see lower prices. But news does suggest the dollar may go higher today. So let's keep an eye on that. And now let's switch back over to Nasdaq and the 30-second. All right, Anis, good morning. Welcome. Dustin, good morning. Good to see you back. All right, for anyone who was on the session last week, I spoke extensively about the new day opening gap. That's this yellow area here. So throughout today, let's pay attention to 17,024, 17,026, that range. And let's see how often price returns back to this level. So far, we had the level created at 1,800. Price traded above throughout the night and then around 3 o'clock. But it bounced off of it twice around 2 o'clock. Continued to trade above, and then it tore through it. Traded below all morning. And then the 9:30 open drove price upwards through the new day opening gap. And now price is looking to see if new day opening gap can provide support. But definitely let's pay attention to this area. Let's just see. So when the 10 o'clock opened, first thing it did was it swept lows. It took out lows here and here, equal lows here. And it didn't get quite far enough to take out this one. That was the first 30-second candle. Then the next 30-second candle swept highs. So just in case anyone went short thinking that price was going to break down, it took out this group of people here right at the new day opening gap. It tore through it. And what is this? Black line is left over from yesterday. This must have been, you know what? Let's go back to yesterday. It may have been the high. Okay, it wasn't. Okay, yeah, I'm not sure what 17,029 is, so let's get rid of that. But yeah, so the next 30-second candle just tore through the new day opening gap, swept some lows, broke back down into the zone, closed exactly where it started, and then we had price action from there. We have 17,041, which is the midnight open, if I'm not mistaken. And that is, yes, so we have the midnight open, also near to where we are. So let's see if price can get above that level. So we have a new day opening gap below us and the midnight open, the dash line above. Echelon, good day, good, welcome back, good morning. I'm gonna mark out those equal lows and see if see if we have a return to that level. All right, so we do have a new high. New high for the day. We also have something similar following in S&P. They're not quite there yet, but probably around 3 points away. The Dow, however, is lagging behind. The Dow is pretty far behind. The Dow has not made a new high today. It did put in a new high yesterday when the other two did at 10 p.m. And since then, it just sold off, and it's now trying to rebound. So the Dow is trailing behind, and the dollar is also buying. So yeah, so we need to wait and let the markets kind of settle down and get correlated again. And we need the Dow, S&P, and Nasdaq to follow suit, and then the dollar needs to move in the opposite direction. But that'll take some time. The dollar is now moving into a fair value gap, so we may see it sell off in a bit. But for now, it's definitely buying, which is what we expected based on the 10 o'clock news. It's also not surprising that the commodities put in a new high. If we're expecting them to put in lower prices, even in the short term, this could be a sort of a fake out. Um, but we won't have confirmation for at least another 15 minutes or so. On a 5 minute, we have this fair value gap that price is looking to break out of. There's only a couple seconds left. Okay, so it didn't quite make it out and close outside of the fair value gap. So now let's see if the next candle can do so. And so we did we did trade above the midnight open. Let's see if price can maintain that position and not drop below. But as of now, on the short term, we are bullish. We'll be looking for scalps probably. I'll start in the next 10 minutes or so. But unless anything changes, we are bullish. Okay, looking good, looking good. Mathematical genius, good morning. Welcome back. $17.89.50. Okay. Oh, is that the midpoint of this? Yep, or close enough. 17.093.50. Yep. Okay, yeah. On the weekly, there's a fair value gap, pretty sizable one that we're running right towards. So yes, Anis, you're right. That could be our turnaround point. So if anyone's in a long and you see things moving in your direction, be careful when you get around 1790, 17,090. How nice. Right. Anyone in the room who follows ICT and is a silver bullet trader, I think this was the silver bullet entry for today. And so after 10 o'clock, you're looking for a trending direction and then a return to a fair value gap. So bullish trend, fair value gap on the 1 minute, just after 10 o'clock. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 candles into the fair value gap. And now, I don't know, 20 points out of it so far. Okay, so the Dow is still struggling. Dow is yeah, not making it at all. But we still see strong momentum from the S&P, and the dollar is also still pushing hard with higher prices. Yep, I see what you're saying, Anis. And so we had the Dow as well as S&P put in a new low last hour. During the 9 o'clock hour, they put in a new low for the day prior to making the bullish move up, whereas Nasdaq never put in a new low. It just started buying up. Okay, so we did put in a new high for Nasdaq. Problem. Right, there was a scalp win for anyone who took that one. So me, before we get going and really looking for another setup, let me just walk everyone through the scalp criteria just in case anyone's new to the channel or not familiar. So what we're looking for first, the start is a trending direction, and we clearly have a bullish trend. So as it's making a new high, what we want to see after a new high is made is for a swing low to be clipped. So we're looking for a swing low to be taken. And on our way moving up, we didn't have one until this one right here. So we have a low with a higher low on both sides. So that's our swing low. Price made a new high by eclipsing this high. So it moved up. came down, took out that low, and then moved back up to make a new high. Once that happens, what you want to do is put a Fibonacci on from that previous low to the high just before it. So the entire manipulation fake out move downwards, just so it could go back up higher, right? So you want to measure this move, the fake out. Once it makes a new high, you want to watch it retrace back to 30% for an aggressive entry, or 50 or 70% for a more conservative entry. And then you want to take it for 5 points in the continuation of the direction. So in this case, we could use this tool, put it right at 30%. So you can see where when it was retracing, it didn't come out the bottom. So we had 5 point stop loss. It didn't hit that. And then it took off and delivered the 5 point profit. And actually you'll see it says target 5.25. I put an extra quarter in there to pay for commissions and all that stuff. So when I do win the trade, I get the full $100 per contract. All right, now that we have price running up and it looks like there may not be a retracement, let's keep an eye on that level that Ennis mentioned, 17,089. So if anyone's in a long, just make sure when it gets close to 17,089, you start paying a little closer attention to if it potentially wants to reverse. But price is definitely moving in a bullish direction. Just a couple strong impulse candles. So we're just going to mark those up so we know where the fair value gaps are. And continue to watch price. Look for a new setup. And so now that after the last setup, it delivered a new high. So we just do the whole process again. We're looking for a swing low to be swept. And then after that, a new high. From there, 30, 50, or 70% retracement, and take it for 5 points. Okay, so this impulse we just saw, the big move up just now at 10:30. S&P and Dow followed suit. So all three made a major push in the last couple minutes. And then we also saw the dollar start to drop. It was in the middle of a fair value gap, and the dollar made an equal move, but just in the opposite direction. So that's what we want to see. And let's hope that that continues. I'm gonna run and get a quick refill on my coffee. I'll be right back. All right, let's see if the 70% level supports price. It's also coupled with a fair value gap. Okay, we're going to want to see it push through this fair value gap that's above. We want to see that invalidated. Okay, still nothing definitive. Good. Yeah. Yeah. Nothing for me yet either. Just still watching to see where we may be headed and seeing if I can find a good setup. All right. So this is the level we wanted to see it break through. We want to see a close above it. So far, things are looking good. We got a swing high here that we'll need to see broken as well. Okay. Looking good so far. All right. We can delete that now. Yeah, we've seen on this, just in this little area here, we saw first a bearish fair value gap, then a bullish one, then another bearish one. And now here we are with bullish fair value gaps again in the same area. But based off these last few candles, it looks like maybe it's finally decided what it wants to do and it's going to seek higher prices. But let me draw up these fair value gaps just so we understand where they are. So we found ourselves in a little range here since the big move at 10:30. So we'll wait for a price to get out of the zone and choose a new direction. I thought the last move up was gonna was gonna put in a new high and give us more bullish momentum, but it did get caught up by that last fair value gap before the high, and it pushed price down. So now we're back pretty much where we started, around the 10:30 mark. So let me just stretch out these fair value gaps so we can continue to monitor price accurately. Right, this one didn't hold. Let's get a slightly larger picture. So this was the area of the last impulse move at 10:30. We saw a little consolidation, and then we saw two very large candles that pushed price up 25 points pretty quickly. All right, let me go ahead and put some of these in. There was several bearish fair value gaps created on the way down. Take a quick peek over at the other indices, see how they're performing. Okay, the Dow is finally catching up. It's getting close to its highs from last night. Um, so where the ES and the Nasdaq both broke their daily high, we have the Dow now moving towards that. It's now at 936 and it needs to reach 947. So it's only 10 points away, which is for the Dow is not a lot. That's actually pretty close. The dollar, it was falling. It seemed like it stabilized a bit, so it's still at the same area it was the last time I reported. It's about half. It's retraced about half of its hourly gain, which was pretty significant. So the dollar is performing about what we thought it would. It's good to see the Dow now catching up. So then we'll have the Dow, the S&P, and the Nasdaq all making new highs this morning. And that's assuming the Dow can continue up another 10 or 15 points. All right, so on this crash down, and we swept lows over here, these lows from 1026. So we've now moved to a bearish sentiment. I was waiting to see if maybe we'd return bullish and reclaim some of these levels. But it looks like, at least for the short term, we've not reclaimed those levels. And this candle just put in new lows from the last 10, 15 minutes. So we're continuing to look bearish at the moment. and we'll look for setups that way. Okay, let's keep an eye on the midnight open, which is down at 17,041. Okay. So we're now trading below the midnight open, or now back above. Right around that midnight open again. You see now a little bit of a rejection. We got about 10 seconds left on this candle, so let's see where it closes at. We saw price create relative equal highs with all of these wicks. There's 3 of them. We're looking for price to continue pushing down and seek new lows. Okay. So it looks like that midnight open did have something to do with supporting price. We now have closure above that level. Stretch this across. So I had put the fair value gap here, marking up a short entry. I didn't take the short only because the midnight open was right here. And I knew in order for my short to produce a profit, to get the 5 points, the entry would have been at 0.43 and a half. So I would have needed to get down to 0.38 and a quarter to win the trade. All right, so that would essentially put me in the middle of this wick right here. So it would have needed to have pushed pretty low below the midnight open once again, just like this candle. And I just didn't have a lot of confidence that the midnight open was not going to provide support. And so for that reason, I didn't take a short through the midnight open. I was hoping it would push through, close below, and then make another setup down here, which I could take. But I'll continue to be patient and I'll wait for a setup that I like. We can see the last candle pushed all the way through this fair value gap, but then reject it prior to the candle closing and close below the fair value gap. So far, this one is being pretty strong. We had 3 attempts to push through on this side. Didn't work. Pushed down, retrace back up, gave it another shot, rejected out. Okay, we just crossed over to 11 o'clock. 10 o'clock hour is now over. Let's just keep in mind that between 9:30 and 10:30, price did move 100 points. So the little stalemate that we're seeing now, and I guess the struggle to get through certain levels, could have something to do with the fact that the last hour was pretty volatile and gave a lot of movement. Most of it was between 9:30 and 10, so it was before we got on. But price did a significant move this morning already, so that could have something to do with why it's moving slowly now. But we're going to continue watching, and we have our expectations of what price should be doing in order to take a trade, and so we're going to just wait for that to happen. Okay, making another attempt. Hello, good morning. Let's keep loading. Um, no, it's not necessarily losing. If I understand you correctly. I was just showing why I didn't want to take the setup, but I'm not sure what you mean by it keeps losing. Okay. All of these candles also failed, just like these over here. So now looks like we're gonna retest the midnight open, see if the midnight open can hold price or if it can push through. All right, let's see if this time it pushes a little higher. This is the third time that price has come down to the midnight open and pushed off of it. We saw that happen at 10:20 or so. Price came down. It did trade below to this fair value gap, but it made a major push afterwards, and that's the big impulse we saw at 10:30. Then we just retraced back to it, and we just saw another, 17 points or so um, push off of the midnight open. And now we're back at the same level. So let's see if it gets another push or if it loses the level and just completely breaks down. Just want to pull this fair value gap over just in case it becomes relevant. Now, doing one of these numbers. Okay, good. I was just drawing it up to say we need to break out of here at some point. Before I could finish, there it goes. Okay, so we did lose the level, at least temporarily. Push down to this fair value gap, just like we did at around 1020. Just kind of monitor and see what's happening, whether we're going to get another push from this level or whether this level is going to be lost and we're going to get back down to the new day opening gap. And now it's wrestling with the midnight open again. So we did get a bounce off of the fair value gap. We got to push back up to the midnight open, and now it's trying to see if it can trade above, close above, and stay above. Make this area a little larger. Few seconds left. Okay. We want to see these swing highs start to fall if we're in fact going to get higher prices. Right. Looks like we have lost that level as well, or in the process of. Short liquidity. Yeah, everyone who's been short for the last half hour or so is doing pretty well. you got in anywhere in this area, then yeah, you're up 20 to 25 points now. Okay, just made a new low and closed below. So let's get rid of this fair value gap now. Look to the left and see if there's anything else over here to be concerned with. Don't think there is. So now we're just back getting to the new day opening gap, which is basically where we started at 10 o'clock. I remember when I first jumped on, I was a couple minutes late, so I didn't get on to about 4 minutes after or so, and we were right here. And I was just saying, just let's pay attention to the new day opening gap and see how often we return there today. And it looks like we may get there shortly. Okay, let me put that fair value gap that was created right at the midnight open. You can see the 50% mark of the fair value gap aligns with the midnight open. So now we just monitor price and see if we can trade above and close above, or if price rejects and we return for lower. 50% of the opening range, yeah. Yep, I have that marked up as well, as it's retracing down. Yeah, I think that 50% is just below, so it's like somewhere in this range, just below the new day opening gap. Around 17,022, I believe. Oh, Jeffrey, good job. Way to go. So trade it down into a 5-minute block. Okay. You're talking about the order block here. Right. No, I don't. I'm not from Red Pill. No, I'm not familiar with Red Pill. All right. Now see if we run through these. And therefore, if we're able to break this level, then eventually we'll start looking for longs again. Yep. Gonna run and get my last cup of coffee. I'll be back in 1 minute. All right. So still in the same position, still pushing through or trying to push through these fair value gaps here at the top of the range. Okay, Dow still has not pushed high enough to get those highs. It's still pretty much in the same area. S&P is bullish, but only slightly. Hasn't made much progress this hour either. And same for Nasdaq. So Nasdaq, S&P look pretty similar, and the Dow is a little stronger. The dollar is it's falling, so that's good. All right. So because of that, we definitely are switching our bias to longs, but we do need price action to support that idea. So we need these highs to be taken, um, and then a low to be swept in continuous highs. So we're not really expecting the price to fall all the way back down. If it does, then it's definitely not moving in the direction that we want it to, and it's not doing what our expectations are based on the other indices plus the dollar. All right, Jeffrey, take care. Enjoy. Yeah, it's been a tough morning since 10 o'clock. If anyone was trading at 8 or 9 o'clock or so, they potentially were able to catch that big move up. But since then, it's been slim pickings. Absolutely, Ray. That's exactly what we're looking for. So if we can get a nice push, then we can return bullish and look for a nice setup. Great, not what we wanted to see, but let's just look and see what the retracement looks like.